what is ready? Because people think ready is no nerves, no mistakes, no unpredictability, that control thing you went back to. But actually, what if ready is being able to keep your mind present enough that you can stay connected to your horse to actually help it, get through whatever that experience is, dressage, show jumping, cross country. That is part of it. What is ready? What is prepared? Ask yourself those questions. Because if it's waiting for everything to be perfect, you're going to be waiting quite a long time.
Happy Monday and super welcome to the podcast. Today, me and Lauren are going to talk about when you panic just at the thought of going to a show. So we're going to dive into all details, panic, what really is panic, what causes panic, all those little details that arises in so many riders when we just literally think of a show and everything that happens inside of us in the background of that. But before we dive in, Lorna, how are you feeling today?
I'm very good, thank you. Yeah, good start to a new week. Exciting week, actually. I'm off competing on Friday, so yeah.
Oh, super. And to everyone who's listened to this podcast for the very first time, then make sure you hit the follow button so you don't miss out on any of the future episodes. And let's just dive in, Lorna. Like, when it comes to this panicking, like I hear this quite a lot. Like panic. Some people use the word panic. Some people are like, I just get so stressed and nervous whenever I think of a show. And like, what actually is up with that, Lorna?
I think you said lots of little things, and I think actually you framed that really well to start with, because I think it's not one thing. It's lots of little things. I think it can be about fear. I think it can be about pressure. I think it can be about trust. And I think shows not everyone, a lot of people use that as a verdict. This is going to show, this is going to prove that all the work that I've done is good enough. So I think sometimes the show we use it as too much of a verdict as opposed to an event where we can gather information. We can go information gathering.
Yeah. And I think just the way we framed this. As always, this came from a question of someone else on Instagram, and I think just the way that she phrased is like the panicking at the thought of a show, like, because that really is what it is. Like, panic is a feeling, like that is something that you're feeling, as we know, as we've concluded many times on this podcast. A feeling comes from a thought. But what is that thought? Because just thinking of a show, like a show is just a show. That's just a natural event. But what meaning are you assigning to a show? Like, what does show mean to you? What thoughts is it that follows when you think about a show?
And for me, it's exactly what I've just said. It's a verdict. It's a verdict to whether you're good enough or you're not good enough. And then from that, exactly what you're saying, like we start making up this story, will my horse cope? Will I cope? What if I'm overwhelmed or they're overwhelmed? Or what if I ruin their confidence? Or what if I'm not confident enough? And what if everyone else is more prepared? What if everyone else is better? And then I think exactly what you say, we talk about a train of thought. One thought leads to the next, to the next, to the next. And before you know it, you're a million miles away from where you started.
So really, it is the train of thought that is being started with show, like show or competition.
One word.
When you step into that, train station of show, like, and that train just takes off. Like, and I think that is super interesting to start off. We always say everything starts with awareness. Like, what does that train of thought look like for you?
Like, for me personally, or for most people?
Just in general, I think as a listener of this podcast today, like, start, maybe, it's a kind of mind map. Just write the word competition or show on a piece of paper. And then what thought pops up next? Like, where does your mind go next? Write that one down. Then, okay, where does your mind go next? Like, because this is how our brain works, right? It just makes links, like tick, 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 and it just just continues. So what are the specific things, like images, videos, photos that pop up when you just think about the word show?
Yeah, we actually I did this with a client last week, and it's mapping out this whole journey, because exactly what you say, you can talk about this one word, that's show, okay, or competition, or whatever you want to call it. Competition actually probably, I think, is a better word, because people then, like, you start to put pressure on yourself because we have this word competition. And we actually mapped it out. We did a timeline and we mapped it out into about 13 or 14 different segments. And this can start from the week before, the night before, to getting in your car if your horse is not on your doorstep, to actually getting there and, getting ready to travel, to driving in the shop. We literally mapped out this whole thing. I mean, mapped out every single thought along the way. what meaning we were attaching to every single one of these thoughts, how it was making her feel in her body, then, and it's amazing because one word, exactly what you were saying, you can pull this whole thing apart and actually map it out, and then actually be able to start to take control of your thoughts over each of these parts. Because for some people, the nerves, the fear, the worry, whatever it is, it starts a whole week before. Like the amount of guys that we sit with in, the big shows or the big competitions, and they've not slept for a week before it. That's a massive amount of energy that you could actually be putting into your performance instead of, worrying about the what ifs, the things that are actually outside of your control.
Yeah, and I think you're talking about a week in advance, but I think for some people this starts even months before, like
Yeah,
in the beginning of the season, when
yeah,
if you have like a goal in mind or something you'd like to do for that season,
yeah,
just actually like speaking that out, like that already creates the panic of like everything that needs to happen between that
yeah,
moment and the show and everything that could go wrong and
yeah,
everything that would needs to fall in place and yeah, so I think wherever you are, whether it's in the beginning of the season, beginning of the year, a week before, the night before, do that exercise, like you
yeah,
said, Lauren, of just like mapping it out. Like what is
yeah,
actually the thought process that
yeah,
is going on inside of your mind?
yeah. And what is your thinking here? Because if you just think something or visualize it, like you say, whether it's this might go wrong or I'm not good enough or what if I don't qualify or whatever, just notice what actually happens in your
Yeah.
body at that point. And most people will get butterflies in their tummy or some sort of feeling in your tummy. So actually, like you said before as well, with awareness, actually start to notice what's happening when you have a series of negative thoughts. Actually
Mm,
start to notice what that does on your body, because we can absolutely change these thoughts around and we can change the effect, the worry, the nerves that everybody talks about that they don't want.
mm.
Whereas we talk about it as energy, use that as your performance fuel. But when we get into that overthinking loop, it does have quite a remarkable effect on you, on your own body and on your own nervous system.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. And I think a couple of things that you can look for, right, when you're mapping this out, a couple of typical what can I say, parameters that are involved when we talk about panic. Like
Yeah.
panic is a pretty, that's a pretty serious place we've gotten us to if we started panicking, right? And a couple of things that are often involved when we talk about panic. So when you're doing this mind map of yours, things that you can start to look for, which is probably present in one form or the other, is there's some kind of perceived threat in there.
Yeah. Yeah. That whole red blue brain thing.
Yeah,
Am I safe? And
am I safe? Yeah,
more often than not, the answer is no. Like not in a physical sense, but in a
not in a
in a
physical.
mental sense, in a
Yeah.
vulnerability sense, in a failure sense, whatever you want to call it. And if your first answer is no, exactly what you're saying, then I think that's the end point. That's where we start.
Yeah, and that can be like anything. Like it can be like physically, like I mean horses are let's be honest, it is a pretty dangerous sport to be involved in. So it could be that, but it can also be status,
Yeah,
identity, like who are
yeah,
you as a person, how are you
yeah,
going to be seen as a person, as we know, like it's connected to our survival, like how other people perceive us. So
yeah,
it could be anything like that. The second thing it could be is also some kind of uncertainty or lack of control. There's something about this that you cannot control. And I think there again, it's like with horses, by definition, like there's always one element or several elements that are outside of our control. They're living,
yeah,
breathing animals. So no matter how much we've trained and how well we know them, there's always going to be an element of uncertainty there.
yeah. And I think as well, just be aware that, in the lead up to a show, it's a pattern that your mind is running. It's not your permanent identity. And we've touched on this before. I am. Anything that follows I am, you become. So if you keep telling yourself, I am nervous, I am scared, I am worried, I am not good enough, all of those kind of things, you become that thing. But if we can change it, it's not about lying to your brain. We keep saying this all the time. But, when the pressure is on, whatever pressure is, I tighten or I overthink. That's very different to I am nervous, because then we can change a pattern. Whereas I am is your identity. And obviously we cannot
Hmm.
change your identity. So I think a lot of this work, as you dig deeper into, is about understanding the patterns and the behaviors that essentially your mind runs.
Yeah, 100%. I love you talk about identity there also, because I think also there, when it comes to a show, oftentimes we attach the outcome of that show to who we are as a
Yeah,
person.
100%.
But actually, that is something that doesn't necessarily have to happen. It often happens as subconsciously that we go like, okay, good show, good writer. Like, 4 piles on the ground, 4 pulls on the ground, bad rider. Missed
Yeah.
distance, bad rider. But that is actually a connection that we're making ourselves. That doesn't necessarily have to be there. 4 pulls on the ground doesn't have to mean I'm a bad rider. That's what you make out of it, right? So the fact that, we attach that outcome to, we are allowing that to define who we are as a person. Like I am, like you said, like
Yeah.
we make 4 pulls mean that I'm a shitty rider. Well, actually, that doesn't have to be true.
No. And I love what you say there because, I am a bad rider, or I can't ride under pressure, or I am bad at shows, or I can't jump
Mhm.
on the last day, or whatever that is. Maybe we just need a reframe in there. And when uncertainty rises, I stop trusting my rhythm. So that's generally why we've had the 4 poles down. You watched badminton yesterday. None of those guys can't show jump. None of those guys are bad riders. They're sitting on horses that have galloped for 11 or 12 minutes and, probably they've lost their rhythm a bit. So that creates possibility for a lot of people because there's a way to improve. Whereas I am bad at shows, I am a bad rider, I can't show jump, whatever that looks like, that becomes your truth. But actually, when the pressure is on or a bit of uncertainty is there or we don't know, it's a lack of rhythm, essentially, as we all know in our show jumping. So that is my in there because actually that's something I can prove. That's something I can work on. Like I don't have to be that person that can't do this, that, or the other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you find yourself subconsciously, maybe when you're starting to map this out, it's probably is going to show up on your on your mind map, right? If you
Yeah.
dare to go deep with yourself and look at that, and probably there is something like that connected to it. Like you feel like you're risking identity, like you're risking to be seen as a certain person, and once you can realize that, and you can make that, like you can separate those two things from each other, then you also don't have so much to risk anymore because your identity is no longer connected to
Yeah.
how the show went, and then it doesn't really matter so much, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And also there's another one, I am not ready. Like there's another identity
Yeah.
one because actually we have this conversation all the time. What is ready? Like I'm not prepared enough. I've not done enough. But what is ready? Because people think ready is no nerves, no mistakes, no unpredictability, that control thing you went back to. But actually what if ready is being able to keep your mind present enough that you can stay connected to your horse to actually help it, get through whatever that experience is, dressage, show jumping, cross country. That is part of it. And most riders, not most riders, that's a big generalization, but a lot of riders wait for everything to be right before we even try. That certainty before we even try, but it's never going to come because it's by nature, this sport is unpredictable. Horses are unpredictable. Our minds are unpredictable until they start working on themselves, and then they can still be unpredictable. And you're like, holy moly, where did that thought come from? Like, I'd worked on that. I didn't expect that to come and bite me on the bum. So I think there's another great question to journal on. What is ready? What is prepared? Ask yourself those questions. Because if it's waiting for everything to be perfect, you're going to be waiting quite a long time.
Yes, because perfect doesn't exist, so you'll be waiting for the rest of your life. No, 100%. And I think also there, like when we talk about being ready, a lot of the time that creates panic, like because we think that we need to be ready before this event.
Yeah.
And then there becomes a certain like urgency there. There becomes like a criteria of like I need to be ready, so I need to get a shift on because I need to be ready, and that can create panic because anything that has a deadline, anything that has a fixed time span, that creates pressure, that creates urgency, and that is something that's usually also present when we talk about panic. It's like you don't feel like you're set up to get ready on time, let's say, like and that is again something that you choose yourself, like you said, Lorna. It's like, what is ready? What is that definition of ready that you set for yourself? Because like you have defined something like illusionally in your head to like a criteria list, like whether you realize or not, there is a certain criteria list. I used to have this actually, where I was like, I can't step up to 100 eventing before all my distances are perfect. Like it's like, yeah, but that until I realized
you'd still be doing 100 right now.
yeah, no, exactly. And until I realized that actually it doesn't matter. And actually all my distances are never going to be perfect because perfect doesn't exist. There's always going to be, a bit of a flyer and a bit of a but it doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, it doesn't actually matter. It doesn't mean that. So I think just realizing that you are putting that pressure on yourself. Like, you were the one who created that criteria list. You were the one that made that a must have before you could do the event or step up a level.
Yeah, and I think, when you think about sometimes the trainings that you have before you go to a show, and they're not the perfect training, you can't find the canter that you want. You're not in the balance that you want. Even your warm up before you go into show jumping, sometimes we don't get that feeling that we really want. But actually, what if this then became about being calm enough, to allow your mind to think in the moment, to feel your horse, to stay connected to your horse, to be able to ride your rhythm even when things don't feel great underneath you, recovering from your mistakes in the ring, and you actually leave the show with your confidence intact. Because some of our best first shows at a level, or whatever that looks like, they are messy. But if you leave with your confidence intact because you've set your goalposts right, or you've set your goals right, then, I hate right or wrong, but, in a way that helps you progress, then that is going to be a completely different experience of ready for your first show or ready for your first competition.
Yeah, it all comes down to the criteria that you set as what is a successful competition.
Yeah,
And setting those
100%.
first in something that is inside of your control. Because as we talked about before, it's like panic usually comes from that there's so uncertainty, or that we feel like it's something that is outside of our control. It's something that it's an element that I cannot control. So by defining for yourself what the success criteria are, and making all those success criteria something that is inside of your control, then you absolutely remove that feeling of lack of control.
Yeah. And I think as well, like I often talk about your flat tire mindset. If your car got a puncture or a flat tire, even just abandon it at the side of the road and say, you're stupid, you're worthless, you're this, you're that. You would handle it how you would either call somebody or get some help, or you know how to change that tire yourself. You do that and then you adjust and then you keep going, or you learn essentially through that experience how you're going to fix a flat tire or change a wheel or a puncture or whatever that looks like. Riding is exactly the same. Bad distances, falling off, warm-ups, four rails coming down, whatever that looks like, those moments are not disasters. They just require you to adjust and to learn to be able to keep continuing on your journey.
Yeah. So basically, whatever happens, you're either going to be successful or you're going to learn from it so you can
Yeah.
be successful in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Good. Oh, anything to add to that, Lorna?
I don't think so. But I think this is never about perfection or fantasizing about what might happen. It's about learning and training your mind in, I guess, rehearsing calm responses. That's what we're looking for, is a calm response to whatever happens, because it's the opposite of panic, is just to be calm in that situation. And it's not about preventing every worst case scenario that might happen, because we know that's not true. But if you can stay connected to your horse and you can learn to calm your mind down in those situations, then we're happy. And competition becomes enjoyable. It's a chance just to test your training and have a great day out and have fun and, enjoy what you actually spend all your hard-earned cash actually working really hard to be able to do this for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. 100%. So basically, if we were to summarize this, what we're saying is make a mind map, like figure out what the thoughts are that's creating the panic. We gave a couple of clues as to what it could be throughout this episode. And once you've done that, spend a couple of minutes, visualize what the opposite would look like. What would a calm event look like, and what thoughts are required to make that feeling happen?
Yeah, and I think actually another little bit I would add in is a little bit of planning for your day, because I think as soon as there was a girl actually in our community the other day, I think she had a flat tire or a battery wouldn't start, and she was off training, and that puts it in your mind before you even start that everything is a panic and everything is a rush, and you feel like you're running out of time and your warm-up's not as good as you want, and like all that kind of stuff doesn't help with any of this. So I think write out a plan and always give yourself enough time and enough jobs, as in tasks, to do in your mind, so that your mind is always busy, but it feels organized and you actually feel in control. There is something that you can actually control in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 100%. Good-o. If you have any questions about this, then do get in touch. We would be more than happy to support you on this. This is exactly what we do. So never doubt to get in touch. And now, to finish off this episode, I would love to introduce to you our newest coach in the team. And she's a very, very special person because not only does she have the mindset side of things, she also has years of experience in dressage and actually coaching riders on the flat, like literally there in the arena together with them. And I'm super, super excited how Sarah is going to combine those two things as a coach inside of Mindek. Not only is she an expert in that, she also is an expert in teaching riders how to cope with their fear, and in particular perfectionism, as we all know, is just really a consequence of a fear. So I'm super excited to introduce, and actually this is more for our Dutch listener because also Sarah is actually a Dutch coach on our team.
Yes.
So we have hired her also to coach our Dutch clients or Belgian clients. So actually, Sarah is going to introduce herself in Dutch. Just feels a little bit more personal, and she can tell a little bit more about who she is and her expertise. So for all the listeners that are speaking English, the coming part probably isn't so relevant to you. But of course, me and Lorna remains as coaches for all the English-speaking clients. So do get in touch. Anyway, anyhow, without further ado, Sarah, please go.
Ja, please go. We gaan direct naar het Nederlands dan. Heel raar misschien voor jullie om het in het Nederlands te horen. Maar omdat ik een Nederlands coach ben, hebben we besloten om de introductie ook in het Nederlands te doen. En ik ben super blij dat ik de nieuwe coach ben binnen Mindek. En ik zal misschien even vertellen wat ik doe. Waar ik gespecialiseerd in ben, dan zijn jullie helemaal mee in wat jullie kunnen verwachten van mij. Ik ben vooral gespecialiseerd en ik werk al heel lang met ruiters die angstig zijn in het zadel, die eigenlijk niet de durf vinden, de moed vinden om eigenlijk te doen wat ze heel graag willen doen. Ze laten zich heel vaak wat tegenhouden door de angst. En dat vind ik altijd heel zonde om te zien, want ruiters hebben heel veel dromen, heel veel wensen, willen eigenlijk heel veel leuke, toffe dingen doen met hun paard. Dat is ook de reden waarom we allemaal ooit gestart zijn. En ik zie heel vaak in de praktijk dat juist dit stukje niet gebeurt, omdat ruiters angstig zijn. En dat is ook de reden waarom dat ik hier zo gepassioneerd over ben, over mijn werk, om eigenlijk gewoon ruiters terug te laten doen wat ze heel graag willen doen. Om het paardrijden terug leuk te vinden en eigenlijk te doen waarvoor ze hun paard gekocht hebben. Dus ik ben een stukje gespecialiseerd in de angst. Ik werk heel veel met ruiters die angstig zijn, maar ook met ruiters die last hebben van perfectionisme. En dat is een stukje dat vaak wat verstopt zit. Een beetje als een kastanje met zijn bolstertje rond. Perfectionisme zorgt ervoor dat ze beschermd worden, dat het allemaal veilig voelt. Maar dat is ook een beschermingsmechanisme dat er juist weer voor gaat zorgen dat je veilig blijft en niet de stappen gaat zetten die je echt wilt nemen. Dus vanuit mijn studies, vanuit het sociaal werk, ik heb een bachelor in het sociaal werk, is het mij gewoon bijna met dat paplepel meegegeven om heel oplossingsgericht te denken, om te zoeken naar uw doelen, naar uw dromen en eigenlijk samen te gaan uitzoeken hoe dat we die kunnen gaan waarmaken. Dus ik kijk er heel hard naar uit om hier echt mee aan de slag te gaan. En om jullie eigenlijk allemaal te zien verschijnen, om jullie daar allemaal mee op weg te helpen. Dus voilà.
Super. En om deze lancering, of hoe dat je moet noemen, het feit dat Sarah in ons team is gekomen om dat allemaal te vieren, hebben we een heel spannende wedstrijd dat we vanaf vandaag gaan lanceren. Wat wil zeggen eigenlijk dat één luisteraar van deze podcast gaat een gratis coaching sessie krijgen met Sarah. Dus je kan een gratis coaching sessie winnen met Sarah als ons nieuwe coach. Gratis! Inderdaad. Dus als jij die coaching sessie wilt winnen, dan ga je naar mindek.eu/Sarah. De link is zoals altijd te vinden in de show notes. En we zullen hem sowieso dat je gewoon moet klikken nowadays. Dat is wel gemakkelijk. Dus nee, het zal allemaal te vinden zijn in de show notes. En als je vragen hebt, je weet ons te vinden op Instagram. Die link staat ook in de show notes. Dus ja, we zien jullie wel verschijnen.
Ik heb er heel veel zin in.
And as always, we're going to challenge you to start making strides in your mindset so you can truly make strides in your riding. And we will see you on the next Magical Monday.